The cold winds of space had a way of carrying secrets. Vast, lonely, and filled with the echoes of civilizations long since forgotten. The universe was a place where stories began, flourished, and vanished. For centuries, an ancient species known as the Vtar had ruled the stars. With their towering forms, superior intellect, and centuries of knowledge, the Vtar were considered an unassailable empire, the pinnacle of galactic evolution. But empires fall, and the once great Vtar had been reduced to dust, their citadels destroyed, and their fleets scattered. Their final heir, a child, was cast away, left to drift in a fragile escape pod, far from the reach of anyone who might recognize her importance. Her name was Princess Lyra. It was on the forgotten edges of Earth's orbit that she was found, broken, malnourished, and on the brink of death. The small escape pod had drifted for centuries, unnoticed by anyone. But that all changed when Joshua, a solitary mechanic who lived on the outskirts of a small colony, stumbled across her while on a routine scavenging mission. Joshua was not a man of means or status. He worked alone, fixing old satellites and broken machinery, living a quiet life in the dust of Earth's underdeveloped colonies. He had always preferred solitude, finding comfort in the simplicity of his work. It was on one of his routine trips to check a derelict space station that he saw the escape pod. The ship was barely intact, a rusted shell of its former self, with no identifying marks. As Joshua approached, his scanner beeped frantically. He was about to call for backup, but something in his gut told him it was too late for that. He couldn't ignore it. The pod was old, but it still had a pulse, faint as it was. He couldn't leave whatever it was drifting in space to die. Inside the pod, he found her. She was small, barely the size of a human child, with skin the color of moonlit silver and hair that shimmered like the night sky. Her features were delicate, almost ethereal, with large, almond-shaped eyes that glowed faintly as she breathed shallowly. Joshua's heart dropped. He knew she wasn't human. With no one else to call, Joshua did what he could. He brought the child to his workshop, treating her wounds as best as he could with the limited medical supplies he had. Her body was frail, her limbs too thin, and she seemed to be in a deep, almost comatose state. He fed her, keeping her in a warm, safe place while he tried to understand what she was. Days passed, and he sat by her side, watching over her, wondering who she was, where she came from, and why she was abandoned. As he worked on repairs, her soft, melodic voice would whisper in a language he didn't understand, and he would look down, feeling an overwhelming sense of responsibility. She was no ordinary child. She was something extraordinary. Finally, the day came when she awoke. Her eyes, glowing softly, met his. For a moment, they simply stared at one another, as if weighing each other's existence. She opened her mouth, as if to speak, but her voice was a mere whisper. "Who am I?" she asked in a language he did not recognize, though it sounded strangely familiar. It was a language of elegance and power, as though it had been crafted by beings far beyond human comprehension. "You're safe," Joshua said gently, not fully understanding her, but offering comfort. "I found you in a pod. You were drifting in space." The child's eyes widened with what appeared to be recognition, but then the confusion returned. She seemed lost, uncertain. "Do you know your name?" Joshua asked, his voice soft but full of compassion. The girl hesitated before speaking again, her voice trembling. "Lyra, Princess Lyra." Joshua blinked in confusion. He had heard of royal bloodlines in the distant past, tales of monarchs and ancient dynasties. But this, a princess? It didn't make sense. The child, the being in front of him, couldn't possibly be royalty. She was too delicate, too fragile to hold such an identity. But there was something in the way she spoke her name that made Joshua hesitate. an air of royalty that seeped through her words, even in her weak state. "You're a princess?" he asked, not knowing if he should be skeptical or in awe. Lyra nodded slowly. "I am, the last of the Vtar. My people are gone. I was sent away to protect me." Joshua's mind reeled as she spoke. The Vtar? He had heard whispers of the great Vtar Empire in old tales, but nothing concrete, nothing to give them substance in the present. Were they still out there somewhere, looking for their princess? Or was she the last of her kind? I'm the last," Lyra whispered again, as if confirming her own loneliness. "The last of my people. My home is lost." Joshua took a deep breath, trying to process everything. This was no ordinary child. She was royalty, the heir to an extinct empire, cast adrift in the vastness of space and left to die. And he, a simple mechanic, had found her. "Lyra, you're safe now," Joshua said. "I'll take care of you." But taking care of her meant more than just feeding her and providing shelter. It meant protecting her from the galaxy, from whatever enemies might be looking for her, and from herself. The galaxy was vast, filled with dangers far beyond anything Joshua had ever encountered, and now he was responsible for a princess. Over time, Lyra's health improved. Her strength returned, though she still struggled with the pain of her past. Joshua kept her hidden from the outside world, fearing what might happen if the wrong people learned of her existence. But slowly, as she regained her strength, her memories began to return. And with them, the weight of her heritage. She told Joshua about the fall of the Vtar Empire, how her people had once ruled the stars with great power. They had been a peaceful race, advanced beyond measure, but their downfall came from within, betrayal from within the very heart of their empire. The Vtar had been at war with an ancient enemy, and her family had been caught in the middle. Her parents, the last ruling monarchs of the Vtar, had sent her away to Earth for her safety. But their ship had been destroyed, and Lyra had been abandoned, left to wander the vast expanse of space, alone and forgotten. For years, she had been drifting until Joshua had found her. Joshua, who had no knowledge of the galactic politics, who had no desire for adventure, now found himself bound to this alien girl, a princess, the last of her kind. And with that came great responsibility. He couldn't just let her go, couldn't return her to the depths of space, and let the galaxy continue as it was. As Lyra grew stronger, she began to help Joshua with his work. She had an innate understanding of technology, her mind sharp and intuitive. It was clear that her intelligence had been honed during her time as a royal. She could fix things, design new systems, and work with machinery as if it were second nature. But what struck Joshua the most was her kindness. Despite everything she had lost, despite the pain she carried, she always looked out for others. Her heart, though heavy with sorrow, was full of compassion. It wasn't long before they became a family. Joshua, with his steady hands and calm demeanor, and Lyra, with her boundless intellect and quiet strength, built a life together. It was an unusual family, one that crossed the boundaries of species and royalty, but it was a family nonetheless. But the dangers that Lyra had fled from were not easily forgotten. One day, a mysterious ship appeared on the horizon. It was an unfamiliar vessel, sleek and menacing. Joshua knew at once that their peaceful existence was in danger. "They're coming," Lyra whispered, her voice trembling with recognition. "The enemies of my people." Joshua held her close, his resolve hardening. He would protect her, no matter the cost. As the enemy ship neared, Lyra stepped forward, her once-lost confidence returning. "I am the last of the Vtar, but I will not let my people's legacy die. I have something they want, but I will not let them take it." Joshua stood beside her, holding her hand, knowing that their journey together had only just begun. They would face whatever came next together.